Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Board meeting on October 16th. We are just covering one item tonight, so it should be relatively brief. If I can ask Noreen for a roll call.
Anthony Vaccaro is absent. Lisa McQuaid.
Here.
Rich Triano is absent. Chairwoman Bonnie Franson is absent. James McKnight.
Here.
Jason Selinsky.
Here.
Jeff Manson.
Here.
He'll be as our acting chair this evening. We have a quorum.
And if I can ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would like to point out that there are fire exits located in the room behind us, the main entrance, and down the hall. We're bringing back Kingsville Synagogue tonight, and representing Kingsville Synagogue, David Namako, an architect. Welcome back, David.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. It's been a while. I do appreciate your putting this project on the agenda for tonight. As was noted, it's been, I think, since May since we last presented, and then there were complications associated with the project. So we want to just reinitiate the project, summarize things, just start getting the process going again. I did receive Mark's comments prior to the meeting. I mean, at a brief overview, we agree. I mean, these items need to be addressed, and we look forward to doing so. And it's good to have this because I'll be able to share it with the owner also.
Just to reinforce our memory, will you just go over the project again quickly?
Yes. This is an existing structure on a piece of property, and the basement was converted to a synagogue. So the building inspector issued a violation associated with that. We're addressing that violation. We did start the process by preparing a plot plan, which and an architectural plan. The plot plan shows the footprint of the house on the site, along with the septic area, and the modifications that we're proposing mainly associated with the parking that would be required and the landscape buffer to an adjoining neighbor. On the architectural plans, we show the basement and the improvements that are done and what else needs to be done to bring this area up to code. The architecturals give a building code analysis, which I'm looking forward to reviewing with the building inspector, but for the most part, we designed it or made the modifications to comply with the building code. That's the next step. The first step is to get a planning board approval, and that's why we're back tonight. We want to restart that process again.
Everything that is shown in the architectural plans exists as they're shown now.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, the overall design does exist. There are specific modifications that need to be done. For example, the doors need to be upgraded, as we note on the plan. The 2 bathroom or toilet areas with sinks need to be upgraded. There are some, I would say, minor modifications that need to be done to bring that basement up to code. We do feel, without question, it can be done.
Okay. You mentioned Mark's memo and some of the points that you're obviously already in agreement with, but if we can just have Mark go over his memo and some of those items, please.
Sure, I'll just touch on the highlights since Dave has a copy and the board's got a copy as well. It is in the RR1 zoning district, and it is special use permit number 9, but it's also subject to code section 5713Q, which outlines some specific requirements for the particular use application before the board. So those issues are further outlined under comment 4. A key item, I think, looking back at the notes from the work session back in May and looking at the plan and speaking with Sean from our office, I think that the applicant needs to have, really for Dave's benefit, so he can submit a more complete and informative plan, an as-built survey done of the property, because there are questions that have been raised that the plan really doesn't provide the information. If you look at aerials, some of the information that is pertinent to the application and pertinent to 5713Q appears on an aerial, leads you to believe that one condition may exist, but the plan survey doesn't show that. So we really need, and it's a starting point for many architects and engineers, to have a surveyor actually prepare an as-built survey. So I think that's needed. That would answer some of the questions, and it's something that's kind of out of Dave's control at this point. Relative to 5713Q, there's some items I listed in the bullet comments underneath relative to plantings. I understand there might have been some discussions about a change in the seating, but that should be confirmed with the owner and applicant. There's also an issue as to access, whether or not the access is to what level road. It may in fact be a road in the village of South Blooming Grove. So there are issues with the access and the location of parking between the structure and the street, and that all could be answered with a better based survey and possibly a location plan that goes beyond just the actual property itself, but shows how you get to the site. The comment 5 indicates that, from what I can gather on the information submitted, it looks like we have not only a referral to Orange County Department of Planning, but possibly some 239 NN referrals to go to Village of South Blooming Grove, and I believe maybe also the town of Blooming Grove. I don't know if that was confirmed on prior discussions or not.
I don't know if it was confirmed, but it looks like it's right on the border of South Blooming Grove, and perhaps some of the improvements are shown in that municipality.
Yeah, so there might be issues of the site development crossing the municipal boundary, so that becomes an issue as well. And then under comment 7, just some completion items from notes that Sean had from the May appearance, a narrative the board had asked for, confirmation of the situation relative to the sanitary disposal. The board did discuss parking, and I mentioned that above in my comments, and also reiterating the planting information that's required by subsections Q4 and Q5. So there is some work to be done. I believe Dave on the architectural side has given some good information, but we need now to get good site information from a survey so the board can see both the inside, what's proposed, and as well the site plan portion of the application, which is all relevant to the applicable section of the code.
Okay, since Bonnie wasn't able to be here tonight, she also provided a few bullet points, and I'd just like to get those into the record at this time. So she's been out to the site several times to...
David, would you like a copy?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Bonnie's been out to the location several times. What she's finding is that there are more cars parked there than they seem to indicate would occur. They have a refuse location in the front yard that she believes might interfere with some of the improvements that are being suggested. The lot line needs to show where the village of South Blooming Grove begins. As Mark was saying, there may be some jurisdictional issues there. There's a fence installed and a pattern of entry and a driveway that is not the same as shown, if she recalls from her viewing of the plan. She also thinks that some of these improvements may actually be within the village right-of-way. That needs to be confirmed, that all improvements are actually on the owner's lot rather than in the right-of-way. It would seem to her from aerials that there's a path that connects this property to another which fronts on County Route 44. That would put it within the 500 feet of a town boundary. It is within a 500 feet of a town boundary, so it's going to need GML review because of that. And we had kind of brought up the issue of the path possibly being there, possibly not. You know, again, it appears sort of on an aerial photograph, and I think Mark's point about the survey, you know, clearing up some of those issues for us. You know, I had also noted back in May about the survey as one of the key things that we needed to get done, and talking about the parking in relation to the number of congregants that might be there. I also have noted that at some point we're going to have to get to a public hearing on this. So, you know, I think once we evolve to that point, we'll be ready to put that forward and address that with the public to get their thoughts on it. Anyone from the board? Comments, questions?
No, I don't know anything. All right, just a few. I noticed there's only 16 seats. Is that going to suit the population of the congregation as it is currently today, or is that for projected growth through 5 years or so?
I believe it's a limited group congregation that meets there, and I was told that that would be the maximum amount of people that would congregate at that time.
Does the congregation foresee growing in size, or is it going to stay that size?
I have not asked the owner that question.
Right. And that kind of dovetails into parking as well. I mean, just recently it went from 70 to 40 pretty quickly. And I know I would not want to walk. I mean, walking through Midtown today was a little cold. So I would not.
70 degrees to 40 degrees.
Yeah. So I'm, pardon my ignorance, but I'm not very familiar with the cultural or driving norms to and from synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, I think it was 3 spaces on the plan. Yeah, 3 spaces on our plan. Is that enough, or is that just for the resident above?
Well, there's a few concerns, a few things that we have to address. The owner felt that that would be sufficient along with parking on the drive. Mark makes a valid point, that we do need to have a survey done to kind of delineate what exactly is on this property and what isn't. In addition to that, based on a further design, we may have to increase the amount of spaces. Again, that's why I'm anxious to start the process again and address that with the owner.
Okay. I'm good. Anyone else?
Lisa, anything? And James, you're good?
Yeah.
As I was reviewing,
One of the things I think
Yep.
we will need is, and it helps to answer some of Jason's questions, a narrative of what is proposed to be carried on. The hours of operation, the number of persons that would use it, how many cars will be needed, et cetera, so that the board can better understand what the nature of the application is. The board would then include in the resolution that no activities beyond the description in that narrative may be carried out without amended approval. So it's important to your client that what they know they want to carry on is in that narrative, because that will become the limit of what they can do.
We agree.
if I remember correctly from our meeting in May, the conversation revolved around that the congregation was made up of 3 families, that it was the properties right around where the synagogue is located that were served by the congregation.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Something that I noticed just reviewing the package before we met is, in looking over the entity disclosure form, because the form doesn't really request it. We don't know what type of entity Kingsville Synagogue is, whether it is actually incorporated as a nonprofit corporation. But one way or the other, I would think in any, even if it's just a, say, unincorporated association, there'd be somebody who has some kind of controlling interest in this. Synagogue will normally have a rabbi. I would think that somebody should be listed in Section B, minimally. Whether it's, the rabbi is also the homeowner, correct?
Correct.
Right. Somebody's in control of the congregation. Somebody's in control of the synagogue. So, we ask, list all persons, officers, limited or general partners, directed members, shareholders, managers, authorized persons, beneficial owners, any others with any interest in of the above referenced entity. List all persons with a membership or voting interest or controlling position in the entity. So, again, minimally controlling position in the entity. I would imagine that if nothing else, the rabbi would be listed in Section B.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. I'm almost sure, we'll revisit those applications, not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing I noticed in the paperwork going through it. What other information do you have for us tonight?
I don't have any additional information. So again, looking to address all of these items, looking to meet with the owner, discuss the comments, the information that's going to be needed to make our application and submission complete to the board. And we will be doing that very shortly.
Mike, anything that you have that we
No,
should be considering?
I think it's a little too early, given the uncertainties of the plans, to issue a referral to the Orange County Planning Department, or I don't know if there's any other agencies, so probably we don't need a lead agency notice of intent, but I think we should wait one more meeting before we send it to the Orange County Planning
What
Department.
about South Blooming Grove? She wanted it to go to.
10 days before the hearing is what the requirement is, but if we
Okay.
want to send it earlier, we can send it right away.
I just didn't know whether to send what I had because it wasn't complete. So
Yeah,
that's
I
why
would think that they would have the same difficulty ascertaining what's proposed and where it is as
Right.
we might. So they would benefit from the upgraded survey, so
Absolutely.
they could understand it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just
So,
I
so
know
you're
what-
amenable to us holding off on providing to South Blooming Grove as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Let's get the application and submission further along in detail before we put it out to other agencies.
And
Sure.
Dave, just make sure you check, Mike and I just looked quickly on code, that the parking calculation on the plan addresses both the residential uses and the non-residential synagogue use.
And just a question for Mike. If I remember correctly, in the code referencing all of the things about religious facilities, that parking in the front is not permissible under that. Is that something that's waivable by the board? I know we kind of talked about that back in May, but,
I'll have to look again.
It's
but-
Q9.
Oh, that's the one you were, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So I sent Mike the comments, so he'll have the Mike
I'll look at
cross-reference.
it. And your question is it waivable? And we'll have to look. A lot of, certain ones are and certain aren't, so I'll have to look at it again.
Because I can imagine that would have a real impact on the project.
Yeah, actually, we address that in comment number 9 on page SB1. No parking or loading between the structure and the street line on which property fronts. Ours obviously does, and we're requesting the waiver. And if memory does serve at the time we did that research, I believe it is within the jurisdiction of the planning board to do so.
Okay. I'll take a look.
But I'm not 100% on that. We didn't research it again, but I'm almost sure the way we listed it. And we will address the parking based on assembly and residential use.
So it would probably help us to know how many people currently reside at the home to help gauge whether the parking being provided is adequate for both needs.
Yes.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you so much, David.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay
David,
warm.
the next board meeting has been changed to November 13th. It's not November 8th now.
So when's the submission date?
So originally the submission date was the 25th. I just totally forgot what day I just looked at. So it could probably be by October 30th.
Actually, while I'm writing, the technical meeting for, the next technical meeting would be
I thought it was the 9th.
The 9th is the next technical meeting.
November 9th?
Yes. And we're only doing one meeting in November because of the holiday and everything.
But November 13th.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did originally have on our agenda to meet with Sherry Torah tonight. Just wanted to mention, for the board's sake, that there is an issue around local wetlands permit that they're addressing, and so since they're still in the process of addressing that, they've decided to hold off and come to us as complete as possible once that's resolved. So we'll be seeing that on a future agenda. With that, any other items that anyone has?
No, we're good.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Would somebody like to second that?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our meeting is adjourned.